due to a technical hitch, but it is being recorded, and I've been assured that it will be posted on the website pretty quickly after the meeting, to allow people to see the discussions. So just so people are aware, it's being recorded but not live broadcast. So since the last meeting, members will know that Mike Bell stepped down as chair to take over as chair at North Central North West ICB. And whilst we're working through these substantive arrangements to replace Mike, I am taking the role as acting chair for that period. So I'll be chairing this meeting. Can I welcome Fergus to his first public board meeting? So he'll be known to many of you, Fergus Keenan. It's his first board meeting with us, and he's Elaine's deputy, Elaine Clancy, who's been seconded to St George's and Epsom St Helier group. So he'll be joining us. So you're very welcome, Fergus.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. And can I also note that this is Helen Jameson's last board meeting before she leaves us to join the National Orthopaedic Hospital, I think in January. And I think I speak for everybody, Helen, to thank you very, very much for everything you've done in South West London and all of the contribution that you've made. And we wish you every success in your new roles. You won't need our wishes, but we wish them anyway. A point of order. This is not a public meeting, but it's a meeting in public, and so any questions will have been notified to us in advance. Apologies for absence. I don't have any, and I think Maureen, you can confirm we have a full attendance. Great. Declarations of interest then. Is there anything on the agenda that anybody wishes to declare an interest? There's obviously a list of declared interests at the back of the pack, but is there anything anybody wants to declare? No. Minutes, action log and matters arising. First of all, the minutes of the last meeting. Are members happy to approve those minutes? Yep, thank you. The action log and matters arising, all the actions have been updated and closed. Is there anything anybody wants to raise in relation to those actions? No? Okay, we'll take that as noted. Decisions made in other meetings. Ben, you're going to take us through this.
Thanks, Anne. The board has met 3 times in private session since our last public meeting. The board met in May to approve a submission of our template to NHS England regarding our transition to strategic commissioning organisation. We met in June and approved submission of a draft annual report and accounts to NHS England, and then finally we met in September to approve the South West London winter plan and the board assurance statements that were submitted to NHS England again. That was everything, Anne.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions that people might have relating to that? Most people were there, so let's just note that. Okay, let's move on to this substantive agenda. Jonathan, you're going to take us through the planning framework update.
Sorry, Anne.
Over to you. Thank you.
And sorry, we just need to do the terms of reference.
Ah, sorry. Have I jumped over? Oh, I have, sorry. Annual review of South West London Committee terms of reference. Do apologise.
I'll be very quick, I promise. So as the board will know, we do an annual review of our committee effectiveness and just ensure that the terms of reference are up to date and in the right place for the upcoming year. We covered the Quality and Performance Oversight Committee terms of reference in our last meeting, and since then we've reviewed Audit and Risk, Finance and Planning and Remuneration Committee. There haven't been any substantive amendments to those terms of reference, and the details are set out in the paper. And we are just asking the board to reapprove these terms of reference.
Okay, thank you. Are people happy to reapprove the terms of reference? Yes, okay. Now we're on to item 4. Jonathan, planning framework.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I hope people have had an opportunity to read the paper beforehand. We're now moving into the intensive phase of work around planning for the financial year 2026-27. The paper sets out the key expectations of that, the development of 5-year commissioning strategy for the ICB, the development of 5-year integrated delivery plans for providers, 1 to 3 year operational plans, as well as a neighbourhood health plan. The requirement over the last couple of months has been to complete the foundation phase of work, which is really understanding our commissioning intentions, clarifying those as an ICB, hearing from providers about their provider intentions for the year ahead, working together to model our activity and financial and performance assumptions too. And then we'll move into a more intensive phase over the coming weeks and months when the national planning guidance emerges. That has not yet emerged, but that will give us a lot more detail on the operational expectations, so what we will need to achieve for patients in terms of timely access to care, for example, as well as much more detail on the financial assumptions that we will need to make for the year ahead. I think it's worth noting that the role of ICBs, as has been signalled nationally, is changing, and there is a slide in the deck that sets out clearly what our role is shaping into through this planning round. There is detail on the foundation phase too. I think it's important to note that we're working intensively with clinicians on a clinical strategy at this point in time, and that work will need to dovetail with the planning round, and we hope those timescales allow for an effective interaction. In terms of the board's assurance, there are slides that set up how we're governing this process over the coming time period, detailing the key committees ultimately up to this board in the ICB that will be making decisions through the planning round, but also the role of provider boards and collaborative ways we work through things like Finance and Activity Committee, some of our programme boards, and through the chief executives meetings that we also have on a system-wide basis. So we're at a very early stage of this in terms of getting into the detail whilst we wait some clarity nationally, but we thought important to say publicly that we're moving into the phase of planning for 2026-27. It is going to be deeply challenging, as everyone knows, given the financial constraints on the NHS, but nonetheless we're trying to get ourselves into the best possible place to start that well. So at that point I'll probably pause, Anne, and take any comments or questions from board members, if I may.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'll open it up for questions. Whilst people are thinking and reflecting on the papers, can you just say a little bit about how we involve local patients groups and the public in terms of what our intentions are, and obviously given the context that you described, some of the choices we may need to make. Could you just say a bit more about that, how we plan to do that?
Yes, of course. I mean, evaluating outcomes and service user feedback is such an important part of what we need to do going forward as we move into our new role as strategic commissioners. So through our engagement function, we already hear extensively through a whole range of means, including social media, what patients are saying and what feedback they're providing to us, as well as more perhaps traditional methods such as the complaints that we receive and need to review and take account of as well. We also routinely involve Healthwatch in conversations and share our commissioning intentions and plans with them, so that those representatives of the patient voice and the public voice are well informed, so that they can help us have the best conversations with our local communities. So I think that gives a few illustrations. There are many of them, Chair, but it gives a few illustrations of the way we would want to involve patients, the public, voluntary sector organisations and other third-party organisations in scoping and shaping our plans. Okay,
thank you. And one other question before, it doesn't look like anybody else has got issues they want to raise. Just remind me, John, the delegation, I suspect you're going to say I don't know, but the delegation of further functions, I'm thinking particularly specialised commissioning, where is that featuring in this planning round?
So the delegation of specialised commissioning took place last April for quite a large number of services nationally. So that is our responsibility. So that, now.
But there's a slug left, isn't there?
There is a slug left, and I think the honest answer, well, it is don't know, in the sense that we're continuing to work through with the regional team some of those services that might be right for delegation, but some will probably remain national services. There is also conversations about how we work together across the capital to do this well and most effectively. It's also important to note that there are other services proposed for transfer as well to ICBs into the future, things like vaccination and immunisations, some of the health and justice functions as well. So there is more to come in this space, but I think quite important to think about the right footprint on which to do this.
Yes, I agree, particularly around the financial implications of some of these very specialised services. That's absolutely right.
Exactly.
Okay, Vanessa.
So just to remember that mental health services also have highly specialised services. We obviously talked about some of those a little bit earlier. Some of the delegation for that preceded the previous couple of years. We've taken delegation for a longer period, but there are still some very highly specialised mental health services in that bundle that I'm always slightly concerned will get forgotten. So just to make sure that they remain in the board's mind. And historically, the funding pathways for those have been very challenged.
Yes, I mean that was what was behind my question, because the services that have been retained and not delegated, by their very nature, will be those where there is the most significant volatility in relation to risk. So if there were to finance, so if there was further delegation in this planning round, it'd be good to know about it. Andreas.
Thank you, and thanks, Jonathan, for the report. Just two points. I mean, on the strategic commissioning, the invitation from local authorities, we would love to actively be involved in, helping developing this for the best way forward together. And also, obviously the background on the neighborhood health plans, which are emerging now, we would love to play a pivotal role and work together with the NHS so that we really align the priorities to get the best outcomes for our residents and the patients and the service users. So it's a open offer from us. We really would like to engage on these both points to get the best outcomes possible.
Thank you, Andreas. And I'm always struck with how well local authorities tend to do public engagements.
I think Anne might have frozen. Anne, I think we lost you. Can you hear us? Yeah, she's definitely frozen on my screen. I think she might be coming back to life. Anne, can you hear us? No. I'll pop it in the chat. Bob or Jamal, I wondered if one of you would be happy to continue chairing just while I write to Anne and let her know we've lost her.
No, yeah, no, happy to do so. I'll just take her because I think it's my session. It's my section anyway. Oh, you're back, Anne.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
we
can
hear
now.
you.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry, what happened there? Jamal.
Yeah, I was gonna say your screen's frozen, Anne, but your can hear your voice.
Ah.
Don't worry.
Go
Over
ahead.
to me then. Do you want me to carry on, Anne?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, no. So this is the Finance and Planning Committee update, which is an update from the last meeting that we had on the 30th of July, 25. This is the update for this on this meeting here. I think it's fair to say that there's been quite a bit of financial planning, submission work and resubmission work that we've had to review and discuss at the meeting. But I want to distinguish it in two parts. First, the ICS business update, and then the ICB business update. I guess from an ICB business update, we had a review of the Kingston and Richmond Place update, and the committee was updated on the financial performance, the efficiency programs, and the transformation programs going on at Kingston and Richmond. We also discussed the proactive anticipatory care programme in the committee, and the committee noted the importance of learning from successful initiatives and adopting them system-wide. There was also an update from the assurance perspective on the planning update for 26-27, and the committee was updated that NHS is expecting the 26-26 planning to commence in October and to be completed by the end of December. And we heard a bit about the planning update just previously. Individual providers and the ICB, as the Strategic Commissioner, will also be required to submit their 3-year plans to NHSE, who will review and cross-check those. From a finance report perspective, the committee noted the update on delivery against the financial plan on both revenue and capital position at month 3. So we reviewed that. And it was noted that savings had been switched between had switched to being delivered non-recurrently, and that was a risk. At that point of time, the NHSE's risk of non-delivery assessment (RONDA) score increased to 3 compared to 2 last month, and that has implications for our deficit funding. Helen will give hopefully an update in a moment over how that's moved subsequently. And what the implications are of that on our deficit funding. But at that point, it moved closer to 3 than 2. In terms of the actual delivery against operational plan, the committee was updated and assured that performance was in line with plan at that point. And then from an ICS business, I guess the committee noted that the ICS business was actually, the financial position was in line with the year-to-date plan, and the efficiency plans are nearly fully developed, and pipeline schemes were in place. Just one point I forgot to mention from the ICS business, we also noted there was an update by the Financial Recovery Group which is reviewing all the assessing all the risks across the system and producing risk mitigation activities. And then finally, the committee reviewed a number of business cases and contract awards in line with ICB governance, just assuring the committee that all those areas were covered. Thank you, Anne.
Thank you, Jamal. Thank you very much. Any questions for Jamal on his report? No. Helen, can we come to you with the finance report then, please?
Thank you. So within the pack, you have the finance report and an update on the infrastructure strategy delivery and on the green plan delivery. So both the infrastructure strategy delivery and green plan delivery have been looked at in more detail at the committee and where that is at. So you'll remember that in July 24, we approved an infrastructure strategy, which was the first time there'd been a system-wide one as we went forwards, and we continue to work and to develop and strengthen partnerships across the NHS and wider partners, particularly with the One Public Estate, to improve our data quality and reporting, to be able to look at how we drive efficiencies and rationalise appropriate state, so that we are therefore using the best estate that we have as we go forwards, and we will continue to do so. Within the papers then around the green plan update, we agreed the green plan for the next 3 years in March 25, and this is the mid-year progress report in what we're delivering. I'm pleased to say that all trusts have refreshed their plans, that Croydon Health Services have been successful in securing a grant from outside the NHS to reduce the reliance on gas-powered infrastructure, which looks like it will have a future saving of over £500,000 for themselves as an organisation as they go forward. We've continued to progress on training and looked at how can we support and really develop sustainability within QI processes as we go forwards, and really start and continue to develop our champions as we go forwards. So the work that we put in train to date in 25-26 has reduced our carbon footprint, which is equivalent to about 7 million miles of a petrol car, or 221 million smartphone charges, like a few stats. And so as we go forward, so we will continue to work on that and with our partners to deliver as we go forwards. From a month 5 point of view, from the finances, I'm really pleased to say that both the ICB and the wider ICS are on plan to deliver. That are underscoring, as Jamal was talking about, for month 4 and month 5 were both a 2, which has meant we have access to the deficit support funding for quarter 3. Key things to note, though, there are significant risks within those plans, mainly around the level of workforce and not making the required reductions as per the plan originally outlined, although it has to be said that the pay is much closer to plan than the actual number of workforce. So we've managed to make it a significant number of price savings, but not actually reduction in the workforce itself. And the other key part of that is that although the efficiencies have been delivered to date, there has been a big switch to non-recurrent, which obviously makes it more difficult as we go into 26-27. So as part of the work we're doing as financial recovery, we're looking about how do we really check and challenge if those savings are non-recurrent, or are they actually recurrent, and we need to drive that forwards to make sure that we're in the best exit position possible as we go into 26-27. We continue to develop and update and look at our plans going forwards and what our mitigations would be, and continue to deep dive into those as we look forwards. Other key things to note are we are below our agency target, but slightly above the bank target. It's the first year there's been a bank target for the system. And spend, and that cash remains above the limits set by NHS England, and we've obviously started recording and monitoring that a lot more closely, recognising the changes to the cash regime. Finally, just to say, from a capital perspective, capital came down in a slightly different way for 25-26, where some of it being directly allocated to the system, and worked with partners about how that has been distributed, but also there were a number of business bidding processes put together around constitutional standards to safety, primary care, access, and mental health support, of which we are continuing to work with NHS England on those. I think it's probably fair to say that obviously thinking about how every organisation in the country is bidding for some of that, that creates quite a lot of workload for them to confirm and approve those cases as we go forward. So we continue to work with them on that, but we are conducting a 6-month review about where we are to make sure that we prioritise and utilise capital appropriately for the system and we don't create any penalties for ourselves in 26, 27. But happy to take any questions on all of those papers.
Thank you, Helen. That was a whistle stop through quite a lot, but I'll just open it up for questions from people. Can you just say a bit more about this recurrent versus non-recurrent, and what's your best assessment at the moment of the degree to which we can improve that this year, given the pressure it'll put into next year?
I think it's probably quite difficult to say, to give a sort of range at this moment in time, but I do think historically organisations are prudent in wanting to say that and identifying things as a non-recurrent benefit rather than a recurrent benefit. So I think it's really about that check and challenge to say with other eyes that actually the reality is that actually that could be done on an ongoing basis. And I think we recognise that as a group of CFOs across the patch, and we're looking at how we can do that together alongside the wider exec community. Okay,
thanks. Bob.
Thanks, Anne. To that point, at the last meeting, the Financial Recovery Group that was earlier this week, I specifically asked for when we come back together again at the end of November, I want some form of assurance process around the recurrent, non-recurrent swing that Helen's spoken about. I also think that when we're thinking about our own interpretation of whatever planning guidance comes out of the centre with nationally set metrics around things like efficiency and productivity and that sort of thing, we ought to be calculating locally what this non-recurrent take into 6-7 is likely to mean as additional upfront. And it's an across the system efficiency and productivity. It's not going to be, it's not right to target it in any one place. It's going to be something that everybody's going to have to address as part of financial planning for 6-7. So we can probably get ahead of the curve a little bit and start warning people of the likely order of local magnitude that we'd expect in our planning rules for 6-7.
Thank you. That's very helpful, Bob. Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. Just to give you a bit of a sense of where we are. So we've slipped a little on in-year delivery of the schemes that we planned to deliver, and we also had a gap at the beginning of the year that we've not fully closed. So we've got some pressure in our position. We have put ourselves in with turnaround, so we've done that at our own discretion. I've got some additional resource in to help us really focus on a few things. Non-financial, we know we're not quite where we need to be from a UEC perspective, but if we get that right, there will be a financial consequence and benefit that will flow if we're not in escalation capacity. But what we are really focused on is shifting the dial on our underlying run rate. So we are doing what we can in order to get back on track, I guess, to use the sort of national parlance, and we're really focused on that both as a board and exec team, and it goes through our finance and investment committee. So I think, Bob, to your point, when we come back and look at this, we will be well positioned, I think, to be really clear what we're doing to absolutely minimise the reliance on non-recurrent items from here on in for the rest of the year, but also be really clear what our exit's going to look like, and therefore the position that we're going to carry into next year. So it's front and centre alongside what we're doing on UEC. So we've got financial pressures and challenges on UEC, which have all of our attention.
Yes, that's very helpful. Thank you, Joe. And it just strikes me, as you've both said, we need to come back as we get into month 9, the planning guidance or instructions come out, to understand in terms of what the ask is, what our allocation is, and what our best assessment is of what will be coming from this year into next, for us to look at the size of the task. Thank you. Shall we move on to quality, and can I come to Masood? Oh, sorry, is this related to money? Andres?
Sorry, not the money, but I think we had the green plan as well, or is it following?
Okay, sorry, go ahead, Andres, green plan.
Yeah, on the green plan, again, just from a local authorities point of view, we're welcoming, you know, and we have a long-standing, you know, history where we're trying to work on this together. And again, the firm commitment from us, we would like to work with the NHS together. And so far, Imran Chaudhry, the public health from Sutton, has done, you know, a good job. And just again, to let you guys know, we are up for really engaging as much as we collectively can in getting the green plan working for the NHS.
Thank you. That's very welcome, Andres. Thank you very much. Nicola?
Yeah, green plan as well for me, please. So I was just going to ask about reporting, if we could do some reporting within this plan on our optimization of inhaler usage, because it's mentioned in there, but my understanding is actually the impact that you can have on transportation carbon footprint and that kind of thing pales into insignificance when you look at the overall NHS carbon footprint, which is, you know, about medicines. Really, it's the single biggest element of what we can do to, you know, improve sustainability, and we sort of allude to the work going on, and I know that it is, but it doesn't really report on our levels of success, and it is really important because actually there's a cost to doing it as well, because on the whole the inhalers that you use, which are greener, are in fact more expensive. So I think it might be an important consideration for the board, and I just wondered if we could put it in when we do the next review.
So if I just come back on that, Nicola,
Yeah, sure.
We are actively linking and liaising with practices, etc., where the pilots are being run. We're just waiting to get the information and data back out of that to be able to do reports with, so we can definitely make sure it's included next time.
Super, thank you.
Okay. Shall we move on then to quality? Masood?
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the paper as read. The update covers key areas since our last board meeting. We've had a couple of committee meetings since then. Performance pressures remain significant, especially around the 12-hour ED breaches, virtual ward occupancy and elective recovery. And we discussed how these have been exacerbated by financial and workforce constraints. We also noted some of the concerns around the EPR implementation at Epsom and St Helier with the associated quality risks. We received a number of annual reports around safeguarding for adults and children, and also looked after children. And we set priorities for embedding safeguarding across the commissioning cycles and sort of fitting in with our new roles. We also received assurance on the maternity concerns at St George's, and sort of there's ongoing engagement as well with Croydon Health Services and system-wide primary care quality. We had a deep dive around primary care, and actually some very encouraging reports around patient feedback and, if you like, the robustness of our care in the community. And finally, there was a review of kind of our EQIA assessments, and just confirming that though the governance is now embedding, and we've got oversight of how that's progressing. I'm going to hand over now to Fergus and Jonathan to expand on the quality and performance reporting. And before I do that, though, are there any questions or comments?
Thank you, Masood. No.
If
So
not,
shall
then
we?
I think, yeah.
Go on to Fergus and Jonathan. Over to you.
Thank you, Anne. Shall I go first, Jonathan, if that's helpful? Thank you. So just to add, thank you, Masood, for your summary of the last meeting. And the meeting in August was followed by a meeting in October, which we haven't had a paper prepared in time for the board report today. So just to add, in addition to the routine reports that we regularly receive around the risk register and performance, we also at the meeting on the 8th of October received the annual report for child death overview, and also the learning from deaths for people with learning disabilities and or autism. So we'll bring a further update to the next committee on that. Moving to the quality report, There are two areas that I'd call out for the board's attention. The first, as we've talked about in previous meetings, the emergency department pressures. I'm pleased to report that we had the opportunity to look at the winter plans that we've collated through local boards and also across South West London, and had the opportunity then also to look at the board assurance of those winter plans. We know that it will be a challenging period for us. I'm pleased to say that we've started our campaigns for flu and COVID vaccine with some urgency at the beginning of the month, and we'll report back on that as the time progresses. There's a more detailed summary in the paper which covers the St George's Hospital CQC report. The board will remember these inspections actually took place some time ago in October and February, October last year and February of this year. It took quite a while for those reports to be finalised and agreed with the trust. There are some areas where there remains significant concern. So urgent emergency care retained an area, a rating of requires improvement. But pleased to report maternity services had improved from inadequate to requires improvement. But maternity services will remain an area of great focus, either nationally, regionally, or indeed within South West London. We know it's an area that we have more improvements to make. And in part, the work that we do through the local maternity network, learning from those events and sharing when we identify opportunities for improvement, sharing those across the maternity units forms an important part of the work that we do. I'll take the report as read, but I'm happy to take any questions around the more detailed elements within the usual report that the board receives.
Thank you, Fergus. Vanessa.
So I'm hoping that I'm raising this in the right place. Fergus, it's not a question for you on your report, but I understand that the South West London ICS has had to make a decision, or is making a decision, to disinvest in suicide prevention. Katie and I had the opportunity to discuss this last week, so this isn't coming as a surprise. But obviously, as the main mental health representative on the board, I need to express our very serious concern about that decision and the impact that would have from a quality and safety perspective for our population. I understand that that's in the context of many, many difficult decisions that we are all needing to make, but a disinvestment in suicide prevention at this stage, given the population's statistics around suicide, I have concern about that. That I'm expressing on behalf of my board, and SLAM's board as well have also had that. We've had that conversation across. We agreed that we would raise it in the public board meeting.
Thank you, Vanessa. Katie, is it you wanted to respond to that? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Vanessa, and thank you. You and I both had a conversation about this matter. It's also important, Anne, to note that this was raised to me by local authority chief executives in my regular meeting with them, and by the South West London Director of Public Health. So the board should note there is a high degree of concern around this decision. This decision is an in-year decision. You all know we've had a number of conversations about this, where there are requirements that come to us nationally to commission things after an operating plan has been completed. There was another call that was a requirement that was made after our operating plan was signed down and agreed with NHS England to fund additional investment in another aspect of mental health services within a context of our requirement to absolutely ensure we secure the control total position agreed in that operating plan. So we have had to make some adjustments in this year, and it is in this year only. This will be reopened as part of the planning for 26-27 to look at within our total financial envelope where there was some flexibility to be able to stop, not award contracts, or delay the awarding of contracts. And unfortunately, this particular programme with suicide prevention was one of those. So I think it's really important. I'm grateful to Vanessa for raising it. It is something that we would not want to have been in a position to do, and it will be re-looked at in the round as part of the 26-27 planning environment. But I think it's an important point to note the level of concern raised. That is shared by the ICB, but it was an in-year requirement for us to adjust commissioning priorities while still maintaining our obligation to manage within our control total.
Thank you. And thank you for raising it, Vanessa. It's an extremely important topic. And I think it's an example of the sorts of challenges that are going to be facing us. Any other questions for Fergus on the quality report? No. Jonathan, could you take us to the performance report, please?
Yes, of course, and happy to take questions on any part of the performance report, but just to describe 3 areas of progress and 3 particular areas of challenge that we face in relation to performance at this point in time. So for ambulance dispatches and handovers of patients, we continue to have the best category 2 performance, which is for people with conditions like stroke in London, and we through the summer months have reduced the number of ambulance handover breaches, so patients waiting extended periods in ambulances over 45 minutes or over an hour. We've reduced that considerably through the summer months. Touching on 2 mental health issues where there's also been progress. So early intervention in psychosis, obviously a really important issue. For a number of months now, we've improved our performance, the proportion of patients receiving treatment within 2 weeks. And also we've continued to reduce the number of patients receiving mental health care out of area. So those are 3 areas of progress at this point in time. And then 3 areas of challenge. Some of these will be familiar to board members. The first, which Fergus also covered when talking through the quality report, so you can see the clear synergy with that. But the first is long waits in emergency departments for both physical and mental health patients. We are one of the more challenged ICBs in the country in that space. There is a huge amount of work going on as you might expect us to be, as we prepare for winter to deliver the most timely access we can to patients. But that is an area of considerable ongoing focus and concern. 2 other areas are our position on long waits for planned care, where we have a long track record of being amongst the best in the country at providing elective access to care, but we have seen a growth and above our plans for people who've waited more than a year to access elective care, and we're working closely with our trusts, including the Acute Provider Collaborative, and focusing on those specialties where there's particular long waits for patients to try and make progress and inroads there. And also some challenges on diagnostic access as set out in the paper in the modalities that are indicated as well, where again there is an immense amount of focus to improve the position and deliver timely access both on hospital sites and through community diagnostic centres. So as I said, and very much happy to take questions on any part of the paper, but I thought helpful to call out 3 areas of progress and 3 areas of challenge.
Thank you. Any questions for Jonathan? Can I just ask about the increase in non-elective that's above plan, if I put it that way? I see it's come down a bit, but it's above plan. What do we think's driving that, Jonathan?
Are we talking about attendances or admissions?
Yes, attendances, yeah.
So it's a complex array of factors that drive attendances. Overall, we're pretty much on plan. The period that we were off plan was through sort of October to December last year, where there were particular peaks in infection at that point of time that drove that trend. But overall, since then, we've been either bang on plan or just moderately over or under. But of course, there's a whole array of work going on to try and ensure, including what we're investing in this winter through schemes in primary care and services like 111, to try and ensure that only the most appropriate referrals go to our emergency departments. So an example of that from last winter was we worked with a company called Consultant Connect to ensure that ambulances crews could talk to a consultant before they brought a patient into hospital to stop unnecessary attendances. So I think what we're seeing, and I was looking at the data just yesterday for the last 12 weeks, is for all our providers pretty much consistent position on plan for attendances. I recognise locally in the departments it'll feel often more challenged than that, but what we're actually seeing is what we expected to see at this point in time for our 4 main acute providers. Hopefully that gives some answer.
Because as you say earlier, that obviously this is delayed data, so we can see that that was an issue, but you're saying it's going back on plan. Fine. Okay, let's carry on then. So I'm going to come to Bob, audit and risk. Bob, are you going to?
Sorry, Anne. I mean, with sort of with the board's indulgence, I'll just take the paper as read.
Yes.
We received, as you can see, internal audit progress with a couple of audits that have been completed. They both give an assurance level that's acceptable. One is reasonable, one is substantial. The data security and protection toolkit, which all NHS bodies have got to do, we got substantial assurance on. Not everybody does, I know from other places. So that's good. We went through the sort of the annual reports that have got to come through audit committee as a standing committee of the board, and we took assurance from how they'd been constructed and what they said. We clearly approved and recommended to the board the acceptance of the annual accounts for 4/5. It was a pretty good job. Helena and her team do a good job of putting the accounts together. Not the most easy things to read, but that's a problem with the construct of an ICB accounts. It's not a problem with the construct of how people do the job. And we received formally positive audit opinions from both internal audit and external audit. So from a governance assurance perspective, that was assuring and the right answer. I would just make a couple of comments. Firstly, and something for next year, we are still receiving, and there's reasons for it, but they're reasons that we can manage out. We are still receiving too many instances of late contract agreements effectively for the non-large acute contractual relationships, and we're still receiving too many single tender waivers. That's a function of process, and it's an issue that management are well aware of and are working to reduce further. And there has been improvement during the year, but there's still too much of it, and as chair of audit committee, I would like to see less of it in 6-7. But people are on the case.
Okay, thank you very much, Bob. Anything that anybody wants to raise following Bob's report? No. Okay, let's move on then. Remuneration committee report. These meetings happened before I took on the role of acting chair. People have the paper there with the decisions that we have made, both in the most recent meeting and some decisions that we've made outside of the meeting. Are people happy to note those? Any questions? No? Okay. Workforce report. Larissa, I think you're going to take us through this.
I am indeed. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Good, good. I am going to take it as read, but equally at the same time, I recognise you're all really, really busy. So I'm going to speak to a number of areas of the report, if that's okay with you, and then happy to take any questions if you have any. So our purpose remains the same. That's for our organisation to be a great place to work, where people can have fulfilling jobs, but also led by skilled, effective leaders and managers. Also recognise, we're a service industry, so we are critically dependent on our people. And then going forwards, our ability to work in an integrated and adaptable way to meet our strategic objectives, the population health needs, is going to be really essential. But we recognise we've got a number of challenges, which are detailed on page 148 in your pack. So we'll all be aware we had a mandate to reduce the size of the workforce. For us in South West London, that was by 58%. Consultation was initially planned to start in August, but owing to the size of and complexity of the change and the challenge, we saw time delays. That's at a national level, which has also brought uncertainty around the shape and structure of ICB. So there's lots of work that's going on in the background, which we're reliant on getting some answers to. So we've pivoted back to BAU and ensuring that we're delivering on our BAU activities whilst we're in this transition state. But we really want to set our workforce up for success, whether they deliver objectives now or in the future. So we're still very much focused on clinically led strategy, work on redesigning to become a strategic commissioner. That still remains true, and also financial balance. From a workforce lens, we're really focused on the culture of the ICB, so embedding those values and behaviours that were launched, a focus on diversity and inclusion, colleague development to staff development, and well-being. And you can get a headline view of our workforce on page 151 of your pack. So that details your normal things like our headcount, our turnover, but for more granular level detail around ethnicity and sickness, that's later on in the pack. So what's just to highlight around levers. So our levers were taken at a particular point in time in the report, and that also captured our last management cost reduction programme, so it seems a lot higher than it would ordinarily. Just to state, we're not an outlier. It's the same as in other parts of London. It's around the same figure. In terms of levers over the last 12 months, voluntary levers for the most part, looking for promotions or work-life balance. Again, I don't think we're an outlier there in terms of reasons for leaving beyond redundancy. We do know we need to improve our leaver data. So we've seen quite a high percentage of other or unknown or not known, which is skewing our detailed data. So we're going to do some work on that with our managers, so to have better form filling, but also around what's inputted on the ESR system or our workforce system going forwards. Sickness remains low, it's at 3%. So I just want to turn to engagement that we've been engaged in with our workforce, and this is really focused on improving staff experience. It's really important that we hear what staff say and we build on that, and that started in April. not brilliantly timed. So we had the announcement that we were going to be changing, but we were conscious we'd just come out of the last change, and it was always my intention to engage with staff to understand how what that experience was for them, things that we could build on, how we could improve that. We had a series of listening events in April, and that really enabled us to get some really rich insights to then be mindful of within this change and transition period, and it was very much shaped by staff feedback. In addition to that, Katie started a series of weekly all staff briefings, which were recorded, so for those that couldn't attend, and actually attendance was really high. And in addition to that, a message on a Friday for people that could also read that, dedicated space on our intranet, regular team talks, and then we also introduced I think it was Katie's suggestion, or maybe as staff members through the comms team, that we'd have anonymous questions for people to pose, and they've gone down really well. In addition to that, we've been shaping our values and behaviours, I've mentioned that, and we've also revised our appraisal form to ensure that staff and managers are supported at this point in time of change. I'll come on to that later on, and the various other things that we've been able to focus on as a consequence of that engagement. In terms of staff survey, so it's that time again this year. This was put to staff actually at the all-staff briefing on a Thursday, whether they wanted to participate in this year's survey. So ICBs aren't required in the same way that providers are, so it's more of a voluntary inclusion. And majority vote was that staff did want to participate in this year's staff survey. Point to note that I believe we're one of 4 ICBs nationally that are going to be participating this year. Survey started and runs until the 28th of November. Just to note, it will bring a number of challenges for us in that people are going to be asking to participate at a point of uncertainty, which may have an impact on how people respond. But also our directorate and the shape of the organisation is going to be slightly different at the point that the data is published in 2026. That said, we'll take the feedback and see what staff are telling us in order for us to then move forward and respond to that next year. Point to note in terms of last year's survey, so we achieved a 74% response rate. So that was a really strong level of engagement for us. And we were able to take, albeit we weren't able to publish an action plan because it came at a point of change and we had to pivot our energies and our focus around change, but we were able to take some of that learning. So we know that staff referenced that appraisal participation was low and has historically been low. And we took that learning to then think about how do we do things differently this year that's relevant for the period of time we find ourselves in, to ensure that people are having those appraisal conversations, the most important conversation they should be having around their development, their well-being, their needs at a point of uncertainty. I'll turn you to page, I think it's 159 in your packs, where you can just look at well-being, because there was a significant element of the conversation of the working well or appraisal conversation for this year. So there are a number of initiatives that we have, some of which are due to end March next year. Through the all-staff briefing recently, we engaged with staff around health and well-being needs, and we can see that work-life balance, happiness, mental health and stress reduction, and needing to feel valued, really important elements of people's well-being. So we're going to be able to take some of that learning to inform what we do to support well-being going forwards in 26. Mental health and physical health was something else that came out, stress management, so we need to be working on those things. As I mentioned, this forms part of the working well conversation. On slide 161, you can just get a bit more of a detailed view around that. Just go to that. So values and behaviours, objectives around corporate objectives and PDP, so personal development, also featured as part of the wellbeing working well conversation. A number of interventions and resources to improve take-up this year. So we had 3 management workshops. We also had a comprehensive guide to help people prepare for the conversation. It was highlighted on our team talk, and we also held drop-in sessions for staff, general population, to help them prepare. And then also shared the experience of those who'd already participated in it this year. So you can see that on slide 162. But our completion rate so far, and we still got them coming in, is 61%. So pretty good improvement there. Just to reference, so because we weren't able to complete and gather working well review or appraisal data through our workforce systems, the workforce system team weren't able to integrate our new approach this year. It was a paper exercise. So we've had to reach out to staff to understand what their learning and development needs are for this year by way of survey. So there's a short survey, it only takes 5 minutes for people to complete, and that will enable us to have a more targeted approach to learning and development going forwards. In the pack, you can see 164, on page 164, our primary learning partners, NHS Select. And we've consistently seen over the years high uptake and usage of that platform and that partner and all the different development options they have for staff to take up. We've got a number of other development offers as well. And then also just to reference, we also had a mentors program that has trained 60 mentors. And the purpose of that really was to improve psychological safety and support of people, not just going through change, but just general development. And we've got 40 people that have been successfully matched. Feedback's really great on that. And we also continue to develop our managers. So staff managers have been able to access the Middle Manager Development Programme, which has been developed in partnership with Roehampton University. It's also a Chartered Institute of Management accredited programme. Again, that reinforcing that need to have psychological safety and recognising inclusivity. We're a diverse workforce or a diverse community. That's also evaluated really well. And just also thinking through the lens of inclusivity. So I just wanted to mention, we've been carrying out work to improve access and inclusion into the ICB and also the system more broadly as well. Within the ICB, we've been able to recruit 4 care leavers, and that's only been achieved through working in a really different way, supporting our managers to think about marginalised groups in our community and how we can help them access work. They've done really well. So they're working within Fergus's directorate, some of which are moving on to higher education as a result of really great mentorship and an ability to work and be supported. And others are working in with other partners. I think one of them is going to be working within Vanessa, your organisation, albeit on a secondment basis. But it was just to enable their next steps. So it's been really great to see their development and their improvement. And then just looking at our organisation, just at a more granular level, we know we need to attract and continue to attract younger people and people from more diverse groups. So given the remit of a commissioner, there are transferable skills in other sectors. We need to make sure that we're attracting people from those sectors and giving them the right support to develop within the ICB within a health setting. We need to understand diverse needs that are impacting our diverse populations. You'll get that through the lens of having a diverse workforce. And we're planning to hold a series of listening events. We know that diversity, EDI, is a bit of a hot topic at the minute. Societally, we're seeing changes happening, a polarised community at a national level. So we need to do a little bit more. We are part of that society, and we know that that can creep into the workplace. So we're going to be holding a series of listening events around various different things. Racism, gender equity, intersexuality, managing changing uncertainty, all of these things that can creep in and have an impact on performance and delivery. So we're going to be doing that going forwards. I just wanted to say I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about workforce. I just wanted you to be aware of the things that we're doing, that we are listening to staff, that we're really focusing on staff wellbeing. We're focusing on their development, which might seem a bit incongruous at a point of change, but we need to set people up for success, whether that's within the ICB and they remain here, or they move on to other organisations or other sectors. Really mindful that going forward, strategic and transformative workforce capability will sit outside the ICB. That would be in the NHS, Department of Health and Social Care, although they will have a focus on South West London. But we need to think about how we can best serve the South West London community and set the ICB up for success in that. My team are really focused on how we do that at this point in time and provide models and plans that enable that going forward, so that we can attract the right people with the right skills, and we actually are able to fulfill that ambition to be a model employer. That's something I'm seeing coming through. There's work that's needed to help enable that to happen, so we're really focused on that now. But that's it. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Larissa. Important topic that we often talk about in terms of our organisation, but it's good to have a dedicated slot here. Masood.
Thank you. And thank you. I mean, you've touched upon so many challenging areas and if you like, the broader context as well, not just for our people within the organisation and sort of in our providers and partners, but also in terms of our population. What interventions do you think are proving most effective in kind of boosting retention in these difficult times? I mean, we often talk about quite a lot of what we should be doing and noting, but what do you think is actually working in terms of what we're doing well?
That's a really interesting question. I think it's
hold on, Larissa, I'm going to take Jamal,
Yeah.
and then you can, Jamal, your question too.
No, thanks. Really, I echo really good to see focus on people, supporting people, and the leadership development. And I have two really quick questions. One is clearly an unsettling time, and I noticed in areas for improvement, there's more to do about raising concern culture. I just wondered, could you just comment on the change in trends that you've seen or experienced on internal grievances? How has that changed over the last year? And then secondly, just a sense of, just building, I guess, on Masood's questions, what's the sense or the feeling about how people are going through this change process? What are they saying to you generally?
Okay. Larissa,
okay, yeah.
I'm conscious of time, so quick answers to those, that would be great. Thank you.
So the first one around boosting retention, we're seeing a term phrase, job hugging. So people aren't generally leaving, they are choosing to stay in jobs, but it's about the right retention. So that's very much contingent on the manager relationship, enabling people to do their best work, to be seen. So it's about recognition, regular one-to-ones, development. So it's the right type of retention that we're going to need to focus on, and ensuring that people feel invested in the right way. But we're going to have to be resourceful and clever about how we do that, because we don't have infinite money. But it's usually in the small things. We've seen that from feedback that we've had. It's just the thank yous. That makes a massive difference. In terms of internal grievances, we're not seeing a massive increase in grievances, but I think engagement, regular engagement, whether that's through Katie's all-staff briefing, team discussions, people being seen and heard, again, I think is going to enable that. But it's very much contingent on how people work well together. I've had a meeting only this morning with a particular team and thinking about how we can improve team development in terms of how they speak with each other and how they interact with each other, how we allow space for respect for people, regardless of their background. So there's work that we need to do, but I think it's in the small things.
Okay, thank you. Vanessa, give you the last word on this.
I just wanted to say, Larissa, thank you for the work. Actually, it matters that staff work across our organisational boundaries. So to acknowledge that, but also to acknowledge the way in which the system provides that support to staff at such a difficult and complex time, with all the things that are unknown, and how the multiple providers in the system could also lean in and support across, and the importance of us doing that.
Thanks,
yeah,
Vanessa.
very, very important point. Thank you, Larissa. And we should, when things, maybe we get to know a little bit more about what the timeline here is, it'd be good to get a further discussion with you about all of that. And just one thought for me is at what point do we think maybe doing some work on building up the skills of strategic commissioners might be a positive thing to do, i.e. investing in what the future role of the organisation might be.
Yeah.
Okay, Katie, I've squeezed your time terribly,
okay.
but hopefully.
Thank you. No, I mean, I'm with your indulgence, I would just take the report as read. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's intended to cover other items not covered by other reports. So lots of really fantastic stuff happening in South West London. Really great to have Croydon as one of the neighbourhood pilots and Kingston and Richmond as one of the Frailty Collaborative. Great to be shortlisted for HSJ Awards. So I think it's important to, in amongst the really tricky, challenging stuff we've got, just to note the ongoing really good things that are happening. But happy to take any questions, Anne.
Thank you, Katie. Comments or questions for Katie? I agree, it's really important to focus on some of the really positive stuff, and there's a huge amount that's happening, as you've highlighted in your report. Yeah. Okay. Right. Any other business from anybody? No. We do have 2 questions that we've received by email, which I think members have had notice of. They both come from Alisa Chase-Vilches, Executive Officer of Health Watch. The first question is, in 26-27 financial plan paper, it says the equality impact assessment will be undertaken to inform decision making. What insights from patients and communities will the ICB use to inform these equality impact assessments? Who will be responsible for performing these assessments? So I think, Helen, Fergus, could you answer that, please? Who's going to kick off?
If I start and then I'll pass to Fergus. So obviously, all organisations in the NHS are expected to have saving programmes every year because there's an efficiency requirement built into the allocations. So as standard, they are required to complete EQIAs or QIAs to ensure that the impact of any decisions are understood before anything is enacted. The types of schemes that could include could be savings due to discounts. It could be looking at how teams are structured. It could be reducing estate costs, or it could be changes to commission services. So therefore, the appropriateness and the level of detail of those EQIs and QIAs will reflect the type of change and saving that we're looking at. And it's really key for us that they're ensured that they're reviewed and approved by the clinical and leadership teams. We do use a number of different lenses to look at that through, which I will hand to Fergus on, but just key in that is we've talked previously at the board about our insights database that's been developed from all our interactions with the population, and that obviously becomes another lens that we use rather than just that of the patients and clinicians. But if I hand to you, Fergus.
Thanks, Alan, and thanks, Anne, for the question. So in addition to the work that our providers will do when they're producing their own cost improvement plans and their consultation process and sign-off process, within South West London, when it's an ICB-led change, such as our efficiency programme that Helen has talked about, insights from the clinical team are supplemented with other research and reviews providing a wider evidence base. And this could include, for example, regional, national intelligence of impacts on protected characteristics, and use publicly available data to support this assessment. But we don't currently engage in direct involvement of people with lived experience of health inequalities in our internal process. The governance and assurance is primarily clinical and managerial in nature. There's a sign-off process that involves the clinical and programme lead for any individual programme. Clinicians are closer to their patients and therefore ensure that the process puts patients and service users at the heart of the assessments that we undertake. The impact assessments are reported through the Quality Operations Management Group, and we have a ledger, if you like, that captures each of those. Our Quality and Performance Oversight Committee report, you've heard earlier on today that the review process includes an update on that. And with membership of a patient safety partner with lived experience as part of that committee, it offers us an additional lens to support the managers and clinicians as part of that. So whilst people with lived experience are not directly involved in writing, signing off or overseeing equality impact assessments, we also take the opportunity to receive perspectives from other processes more indirectly, such as our community engagement, service engagement and patient experience data. Just as an add-on to that, I have a meeting scheduled with Alicia on Thursday to talk about another matter. So
Okay.
I'll offer the opportunity with her then if there's anything further that I can support.
Thank you, Fergus. And I think you very nicely went on to answer the second question. So, but for the record, I'll read out Alyssa's this question, and hopefully we've answered both her questions. So, as you were talking about, she was talking about people with lived experience. And she said, similarly, referring to equality impact assessment in the Quality and Performance Oversight Committee update, it says that the committee noted a summary of EQIs completed since March 2025 and an overview of the governance and sign-off arrangements in place to ensure quality impacts are considered and mitigated in decision making. The committee were assured that all EQIAs are developed with clinical and senior leadership oversight, and the process includes regular assurance reporting to Quality Operations Management Group, QPOC and the ICB board. And for the record, the our question is whether people with lived experience of health inequalities are involved in developing these mitigation strategies and are involved in providing oversight of these assessments. And I think you've responded to that, Fergus. So thank you both. Fine, that brings us to the end of the meeting. Can I ask members to note that there's been a change actually from the 21st of January to the 28th. So you should all now have that in your diaries. I think that notification's gone out, has it, Maureen? I think I saw that come into mine. Yeah. Okay, I think that brings the meeting to a close. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.